Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. I'm joined today by David. David, can you please introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gleb. My name is David Lewallen. I am the owner of a company called Verbatim Digital. We are an AI first agency. So we are helping brands to basically look and see how well they're doing in engines and such as ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google Gemini. And what we're really doing is understanding how well they are being
Hmm,
featured in specific prompts. And then from there, helping brands to improve their positions.
excellent. So tell me a little bit more about what you think brands should be doing to future-proof their visibility with AI. How can they stay competitive?
Well, the first thing they need to do is they need to understand how well they're doing now. So, depending on the size of the brand, how much marketing they have done in the past, how
Mhm.
much organic search they have done in the past,
Hmm.
how well they're doing on Google, that's going to have sort of a foundational layer. And then
Okay.
from there, there's a bunch of things that the large language models are trained on, where we want to make sure that brands are featured in these types of training data. That's things
Mhm.
like Wikipedia and Reddit,
Mhm.
where a lot of their training data comes from. And then from there, they need to understand their baseline and then see how they can improve compared to their competitors.
So it sounds like you're looking at what the models are being trained on and really trying to influence how the brands are represented in what the models are being trained on. What kind of information are you getting? Like how do you know what they're being trained on? I mean, I think the AI companies are trying to keep this data kind of secret. They're not really revealing what they're training them on, right? Or am I mistaken?
Well, I think as an industry, there has been some understanding of where they're getting their information. So
Okay.
we know for a fact Wikipedia is a strong area where they've been
Hmm.
trained, and we also know that Reddit, because of the human-oriented language within Reddit, they're
Hmm.
training heavily within that platform as well. There's also another sort of set of websites called the Common Core, and so
Hmm.
this is where a lot of the language models are getting a lot of their information in order to be trained on.
Interesting. So I know for SEO, people used to set up websites hoping that Google would link to the website that's being set up and, many links to each other. But those sound like those are kind of outmoded. That's not what the AI, or at least for AI search, that doesn't sound like what companies would want to use to train their models.
So I'm glad you brought up the link connectivity. And to your point, to kind of take that the next step, whenever a company, a SaaS company, a data company is trying to create some type of index or search index,
Hmm.
obviously most of it is powered by some type of computer algorithm, right? But what they all need is the human element to basically tell them how well the algorithm is doing. And
Hmm.
there's no way that that can happen, even if they had a massive amount of people in a room who are QAing the results. They need some type of human element to let them know how well the results are doing. And so with Google, what they used was link connectivity.
Yep.
And the reason they used that is because it takes a human to put a link from one article or one website to another. And that they use that as a human vote to say, this website over here, since there are a lot of humans linked to it, we can basically say that that's a really good result. So that's how Google did it.
Hmm.
Now, with AI, they're doing the same thing, right? Maybe it's not an algorithm, it's more of a predictive modeling based on some tokens, but they still are producing a result from a computer
Hmm.
model, right? Now they need the human element to kind of go in and ground their results. And one thing that they're using from the training model perspective is they're using Reddit because That's an area where a lot of people have said a lot of different things across a bunch of different industries. And so they're using that Reddit as well as Wikipedia as that sort of human element to kind of check their models work and their models output.
So interesting. You talk about the vote because it makes me think about the Reddit karma system. Is that something? Do you know whether they're incorporating the Reddit karma system? Not simply did a human say this, but how high was a comment upvoted? That's kind of one thing that makes me think about. For Wikipedia, I'm wondering if they use the talk pages because a lot of the pages in Wikipedia, obviously, we're familiar with the front-facing ones, but what goes on behind the scenes with Wikipedia for folks who know how Wikipedia works is that people have a talk page, which is a non-public page, about what each article says. So there can be debates about what an article about a brand should say or something like that. And the same thing, there can be upvotes or downvotes about what a brand says about itself or statements about the brand on Reddit. Do you know if that's something that the algorithms can incorporate, or are they just taking the text and simply training on the text?
That's the great question. And I wouldn't know the back ends to your point of how well they're integrated into the Reddit system. The
Mhm.
way that I look at it, though, is that with Wikipedia and with Reddit, since you have human moderators that look
Mhm.
at every single piece of content and approve or disapprove, that I think is enough of a human element for the language models to be able to train on both those data sets. And at least when you take a good amount of that data, you can pretty much say that a human had a pretty good hand of having some type of say as to whether that should have made it even onto the regular Wikipedia or
Mhm.
onto a regular Reddit. Of course, with Reddit, there's completely different levels of moderation when it comes to the different subreddits. But I think in
Mhm.
general, we can pretty much say that a human has looked at almost every single comment and approved or disapproved.
Okay, interesting. Now, when thinking about brands that are trying to figure out how they should position themselves on AI, we've increasingly seen AI companies specifically choosing to work with certain brands and integrate them into their shopping experience. So can you share a little bit about light about this? Like, are the AI companies trying to highlight those specific brands because they're naturally financially incentivized to do so? What's going on behind this organic versus partnership, like versus sponsored? Are we going to have ads in AI, which is seems like it might well be the future? What are you thinking about there?
Yeah. So my thought is definitely those partnerships are having a huge effect on the training data that the LLMs are
Mm,
using. And absolutely, especially with things like perplexity, you can really see they kind of lean heavily towards a certain brand that they have a partnership with, same with
mm,
ChatGPT and the like. So I would definitely say that from that publishing perspective, those brands that have built partnerships are finding themselves a lot more in the data. When
mm,
it comes to the more organic side, however, I would say that that's where things like Wikipedia, Reddit, but then also the engines are using Google and Bing and other search engines, right, to
mm,
really ground their answers. So traditional search engine optimization is not going anywhere. It's
mm,
definitely still the main foundation that these LLMs are using to ground
mm,
their responses. So we definitely are gonna see LLM and AI optimization increase over time.
mm.
But regular search engine optimization is not going to go anywhere. That's still going to be a foundational part of every brand strategy. And to kind of answer um, that paid media question, are we going to start seeing ads? Obviously, they continue. At least when I say they, I'm talking about uh, ChatGPT specifically. Have kind of consistently said again, said they're not going to do that. Personally, I think
Sure.
you kind of alluded to it. I don't see how they can possibly continue very much longer, losing, billions of dollars
Hmm.
when it really seems like the easy answer is to produce some type of ad platform within there. That's my take. We see how well Google has done. They're one of the biggest
Yeah.
companies in the world. Why are they the biggest? It's because of the ad platform. I don't see really any other financial way to kind of make a lot of this money back. So I'm expecting to see ads as well.
Yeah, I mean, considering how much money they're investing into the building out the compute, I mean, I'd be very surprised if, within the next couple of years, probably next year, we don't see ads. And once one major platform puts ads on, others are incentivized to do so. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Google, you mentioned, would be the first. I saw that they are recently talking about how they're integrating their shopping graph into their into Gemini. So they're definitely using their existing search platform business abilities and integrating that increasingly into Gemini.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I don't think Google's going to shy away from adding ads,
Mhm.
anytime soon. But ChatGPT is the one, they're the sort of big LLM that
Yeah.
we see. They're the ones that have the biggest market share right now, other than the main interface of Google, I would say. So yeah, it's yet to be seen whether or not they're going to incorporate ads. But again, I don't see how they could continue without it.
Mhm. Now, when brands are thinking about, to switch to another topic, when brands are thinking about measuring their metrics on AI visibility, what should they be thinking about? Like, what do you talk about to your clients?
Yeah, no, definitely. So as we all know, all of us that have been using, ChatGPT and the like for
Mhm.
a number of years now, we're using it for all kinds of things, right? Personally, I use it to help craft emails. I use it to kind of
Mhm.
in my day-to-day workflows. It just kind of has become part of what you know, part of one of my tools. As a measurement tool for brands, we really need to specify exactly where in this zeitgeist we want to be kind of focusing our measurement
Hmm.
because every time you measure a prompt, it's going to cost a little bit of money. And there's a bunch of different tools that are coming out. They have a bunch of different ways that they are focusing on how to measure. The
Mhm.
way that we are talking to our clients about this is really about talking about the user funnel. So
Mhm.
ChatGPT
Hmm.
and the like really have sort of changed the user funnel. It used to be that you would go, you'd have a question, you need something solved as a user or as a potential customer. You would go to Google, you would type in some sort of high level generic informational type of query, get a little bit of answers. That would then kind of fuel your thought process. Maybe a couple of days later, you come back and you try and figure out how am I going to solve this problem? Oh, there's
Mhm.
some brands here that are working on and have some products or solutions that I might use to solve my problem. Then from there, maybe you get an ad, you were retargeted, and all of a sudden you're back on a website and you're kind of doing some comparison, right? Some comparison
Mhm.
shopping. With AI, all of that has truncated and has really
Hmm.
shortened that user journey. Many times it's now just one prompt, right? You can ask a
Mhm.
very informational prompt, and as you are scrolling down for the result, you can see there's already some recommendations for some brands that can help you
Mhm.
solve that problem. So the way that I see this is we really need to start measuring in that exact part of the funnel where your users are looking for comparisons to other
Hmm.
brands. And so we basically need to, it's kind of like keyword research was for organic search. Now we do prompt research. We figure out where in the funnel we really want to measure, and we measure how well you're doing against your competitors for those particular responses.
Interesting. So that's pretty, or how do I say this? It should be pretty easy to see the changes that are introduced by, let's say, search optimization, because they come out in the algorithm pretty quickly. But the models are not retrained on a regular basis. They are retrained every few months. So whatever data they're fed in, they have that internal data. And then they have the data they search on. So those are
Yeah.
two distinct, separate things. Can you clarify about how the metrics are going to be impacted by those two distinct, separate things? The model data that they're trained on versus if the model even does an external search or doesn't do an external search, like what actually informs where it's placing the brand or solution to a problem. Is it coming from its internal data, what it's trained on? Is it coming from the external data that it finds, or does it find like, oh, I'm looking for this sort of brand, and then I'm looking for the citation to the brand, and it's not influencing its actual output, whatever is out there? Or is that whatever is out there, the what's in Reddit or in Wikipedia, is it influencing the current model continuously as it's searching for new information?
No, that's a great point and great question. So the way that we're looking at this is just as you mentioned, there's really two sides of this coin. There's that training data, which as we mentioned is that Wikipedia, Reddit, some of the stuff in the Common Core. So this is where companies are investing more and more into Wikipedia pages,
Mhm,
into a Reddit engagement strategy, and then continuing to and really seeing extra value in digital PR. So making sure that your website is getting mentioned on places like Forbes and Entrepreneur and all these other places where we know LLMs are using those to train. So that's one side of the coin. On the other side, it really comes back down to traditional SEO and how the LLMs are using organic search. So that's
mhm,
Bing, Google to ground their answers when they don't have
mhm,
up to date information in to your point in that training data.
mhm,
And for that, what we're doing is we're seeing a lot of query fan out, right? So the engines are taking your prompts and they're turning those into, for ChatGPT, it's not that many. It's maybe 5 or 10 uh, queries, and they're querying Bing, and they're taking all that information, and then they're synthesizing that into an answer to ground
mhm,
the trained LLM data. And so what we're seeing is the way to optimize for this is to take two different approaches. One of them is to take more of a long-term approach, and that's to make sure you're in that training data. And that's going to
mhm,
take, to your point, 3 to 6 months to
mhm,
really sort of see any return on that. But brands need to start now because we know that in 3 to 6 months, that data is going to make its way
mhm,
into the LLM. What can you do today is you can look at those query fanouts and see what types of information the LLMs are using to ground their information.
mhm,
And what we're finding is a lot of it is these best X lists, right? So,
mhm. Interesting.
top 10 data
Mhm,
software companies. And these are the kinds of lists that more and more companies are investing in, researching who's writing these lists. Can we write these lists ourselves on our own site? And can we look to get some of these lists sort of published in other areas? And that's
mhm,
what we're finding is really having a pretty immediate effect. You'd be surprised how
mhm.
quickly those show up in the responses.
Excellent. Well, it's a great conversation. As we finish up, what do you think is going to be the future of AI influenced marketing in the next year?
Well, as we're seeing, it's influencing everything, right? More and more companies are going to start
Mhm,
to really understand how this is working. So, Verbatim Digital, we're really on the forefront of optimizing, testing. We have our own tool, so we get a lot of data, and so we're able to kind of test things. So now we
mhm,
know, for the most part, how things are working.
mhm,
Um, today, that might change tomorrow, and it probably will, right? These language models. Um, they're getting better. I think we've come to sort of a peak, and I know this might not be what a lot of people believe, but what we're seeing and the way that I kind of saw, ChatGPT 3 and it's changed to 4 and how massive of a change that was and how much
mhm,
improved it was. But then going to from 4 to 5, we noticed it wasn't as massive of a change. What they really did is they
mhm,
used a lot more of that grounding data. And
mhm,
so, what that kind of says to me is that from a language model perspective, they can only get so good to where they start getting diminishing returns, right? So,
mhm,
it costs billions of dollars to train these models. And I think we're at a point where they are almost as good as they're going to get from a language perspective. And that might be controversial, but that's kind of what I'm seeing. But I
mhm,
think what they're going to start doing is start getting better at the RAG, which is sort of the retrieval and how they're sort of
mhm,
augmenting a lot of that extra data that's grounding their answers. So more and more companies need to continue to invest in a lot of the traditional stuff. So SEO is an awesome baseline to kind of start with,
mhm,
but then also double down on, like I said, that Reddit marketing, the Wikipedia pages, and
mhm.
also their digital PR and making sure that they're continuing to get mentioned and talked about in the media.
Well, excellent, David. Thank you very much. This was a very helpful interview.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you checked out the show and leave a review. It helps other people discover the show and helps us improve the show. And if you have any questions, as always, email me at gleb, Gleb, at disasteravoidanceexperts.com.